Hi, and welcome to our 13th video in our Cybersecurity Lab for Beginners series. In the last video, we actually went ahead and we installed Nessus Essentials on our Kali machine, and at the end, we were logged in, and we were just waiting for the plugins to really configure. And here we are now the next week, so we should be all good to actually do the scans. So today, I'm going to show you guys how to do a basic scan on an IP address. We're going to be scanning our Metasploitable 2 machine here. I've actually already done a scan because as OpenVAS as well, Nessus scans do take a decent amount of time, and that would be too long to just wait on the video for. But let's go ahead and let's actually get started. So what we're actually going to want to do on the Kali box is log into our Nessus Essentials platform, which that is just going to be at the local host on port 8834. And then you're just going to put your login information here that we did in the last video. And you're going to be able to log in and you're going to be greeted. Your page might look a little bit different if you haven't done a scan. It's going to prompt you to actually create a scan here. But as you can see, I already have a scan done on Metasploitable 2. I have that named, but we aren't going to be using that. That's just going to show you guys what it looks like afterwards. We are going to be creating the scan fresh in this video. So what we actually want to do is on the right hand side here on the upper side, we're going to click on new scan and we're going to click on basic network scan. And that's because we know the IP address of our Metasploitable 2 machine. Now, in theory, you should always know what's on your network and pretty much the IP addresses that are associated to those machines. But if you don't, there is also the discovery scans as well, which we'll take a look at those in another video. This is really just to get you started with Nessus Essentials for now, where we've installed it, and now we're going to do a scan. So if we look at the Metasploitable 2 machine here, we know that the IP address after I ran an ifconfig is the 172.30.2.101. Hasn't changed since the first videos there. So we're going to click Basic Network Scan. We're going to give it a name here. So I'm going to name this Metasploitable 2, and I'm just going to put a dash for YouTube here to know that this is the one I created during my YouTube channel. So here we can actually just say Metasploitable 2 machine scan for the series. And here you can put it in a folder. So if you have other folders created, I kind of just use my scans, especially if you're just playing around with your home lab. But maybe in your production environment, maybe you would create folders for your different maybe VLANs or anything like that, just to kind of organize it a little bit nicer, or maybe group server roles together, like web servers, Active Directory servers, database servers. So maybe it's a little bit easier for you to distinguish. Maybe you have quarterly scans on the database servers, monthly scans on the Active Directory servers, anything like that. It could just help to just simplify managing all those different scans that you have going on. So here for the Metasploitable 2, for the targets, we are just going to put in the IP address here. Now, there are going to be a lot of options. I'm just going to go over some of these different options. We aren't going to be making any changes because once again, we are just wanting to do the basic network scan, which is going to give us our vulnerability scan that we actually want. So here you do have the option to actually put this on a schedule. So that is perfectly awesome. If you do configure an SMTP server, you can also configure notifications from the scans as well. You can also change the discovery for the scan type. So you could just do the common ports, all ports. We're going to do common ports for the Metasploitable 2 machine. The assessment, once again, we are just going to do the default scan. And then you also have some options for reports here, which that's just going to be kind of customizing how you kind of want the end report to really look like. And then the scan type, we're just going to leave that as default here for us as well. Now, if you also have credentials for the machine, so there are two types of scans. You can do uncredentialed and credentialed scans. So here you can actually put in your Windows passwords here. If it's a Windows machine, if you have an SSH key or account, you can also put that in here as well and put in all that info. We're just going to be doing a uncredentialed vulnerability scan on this Metasploitable 2 machine, which is exactly what we did with OpenVAS here. So we're going to click on save at the bottom here. And of course, it's prompting me for that password because I added them. So we're just going to close those out and then we're going to hit save. So here we actually have our new scan here. You're going to see that the last scan hasn't happened yet because we haven't actually launched our scan yet. We can just launch it right here. And that's going to start the scan. So if we just look at it really quickly here, we're going to see that it's running. We can see the vulnerabilities that it's found yet and the hosts that it's found. So it's going to go through, it's going to detect that host, find it online, and then it's going to go ahead and try to find those vulnerabilities. So if we go on a scan that's actually complete, and we'll come back, once we've looked at the one that's all complete, we'll go back and we'll look to see how far it's gotten. But let's look at the one that I did right before recording this video. So here we can actually see the IP address of that host. We can see the authentication failed because we didn't do any authentication. We can see all the different vulnerabilities that it found and their levels. So we can see that we have 9 critical, 5 high, 22 medium, 8 low, and then we have info, which is 128. And we can see that the scan did take 25 minutes. Now this will depend on how much resources you've assigned your virtual machine. I actually underspec the Kali box for what Nessus would want, but that's okay. It still works just fine, especially in a home lab environment, but you're going to want to make sure, and I'm going to show you guys where you can find all of that health info on your scanner. But let's go ahead and let's go and take a look at the vulnerabilities here. So this is where we can actually see a bunch of the different vulnerabilities that are on the machine. So the first one that we see here is going to be the Canonical Ubuntu Linux end of life. So if we click on it, we're going to see that it is no longer maintained, very similar to the OpenVAS, how it gave us that the Ubuntu was out of date. So that is actually very, very similar. Gives you a little bit of details here as well. So this actually does tell you that it's been just over 12 years basically since this OS has been end of life. So it tells you the exact end of life of that Ubuntu version, which is awesome. So let's go back to the vulnerabilities. We will also see here the VNC server password. So if we click on this one, we've detected that the default password is still on there, and the default account has a weak password, which the password is password. So you can even see Nessus logged in using the password of password. Now, of course, you will always want to test these, especially if you're doing a penetration test and you're making a report. It's not just sufficient to really do these scans and get these results, print them out, and just hand them over. You will want to test these to make sure that it's not a false positive. That is one of the things, especially with Nessus and OpenVAS. You will see that the different tools will bring up different results, and especially once you start tinkering with the different settings, you might get more false positives. You're going to want to make sure that you actually test them out to make sure that the vulnerability found actually does apply, because sometimes, especially if you're testing something like a Red Hat Linux operating system, sometimes Red Hat will release a fix for something that Nessus might not actually even take into consideration. There's a few examples of that in the past. I don't quite remember exactly, but if you do have vulnerabilities that come up and you're like, I'm not sure if this actually applies, make sure you're going in, make sure that you're reading the details, make sure that you're going in, reading the articles as well, and make sure that you're also testing it as well. When Nessus and OpenVAS do the actual tests and give you the output, and it's not just based on purely an ID that it sees or a port that it sees that's open. That's usually when you're going to want to really go in and check those a little bit more as well. But here we can see that these are pretty all what we would really expect. We know that the Metasploitable machine has a lot of vulnerabilities. We can see that the bind shell backdoor was detected, and it tells you exactly how it kind of came up with that as well. And what's really nice here is I'm going to actually pick one that has some. So if we actually go look at the Apache Tomcat here, we can see here on the right-hand side, we can see a lot of actual details on that vulnerability as well. Like when the plugin was published to detect that vulnerability. And we will also see here that the threat recency, there's no recent recorded events for this exploit. The threat intensity is very low. The exploit code maturity is very high. So this vulnerability has been existing for a very long time. So it's definitely quite easy to exploit here. And if we actually scroll down, we will actually see vulnerability information. Exploits are available. Exploitees, they are exploitable quite easily. So you're definitely going to want to target these probably more so, even though there's no threat recency. It being easily exploitable and the exploits being available is definitely very, very important in comparison to, I believe, there might be something here. Note these are also exploits available. Sometimes you can find some that don't necessarily have exploits available. So here, this is one. So the Samba bad luck vulnerability, the threat intensity is very low. The exploit code maturity is unproven, even though it is a high severity, and definitely you would want to patch these eventually as well, because we can see that the patch has not been applied, and this is a very simple fix. But the exploit available is false, and the exploitees is no known exploits are available. So this is something that someone would really have to know how to perform that man-in-the-middle attack to be able to take that traffic and be able to really exploit this. Now, this is definitely still something that you would want to patch, but if you have a long list of vulnerabilities, looking at if something is very easily exploitable versus not exploitable can maybe also give you the pathway of what to remediate first, especially if you have 5 high vulnerabilities. One of them is very easily exploitable, whereas the other 4 aren't. You're going to want to target that really exploitable one first, just because of that's the one that's probably the easiest for someone to go into your network, have tools to be able to exploit using Metasploitable or Empire or any of the other common C2s, and also just having vulnerabilities available on the dark web to be able to execute. So that is my recommendation there as well. Also, take a look at the sector that you're in as well. Oftentimes, certain vulnerabilities are going to be more targeted specifically towards education or towards healthcare, towards airports, and that you can actually get in the MITRE attack framework. Oftentimes, you will see the threat actors with what they're targeting. So that will even maybe give you a little bit more details as well. So that is really the vulnerabilities here, and we can actually see the history. So if you do multiple scans, you can actually click on the different times in history and be able to see the vulnerabilities, which this is very, very helpful as well, because as you remediate these, what I like to do is I like to remediate the vulnerabilities and then do a rescan on it to see if I actually corrected it to the Nessus scanner, and then I can go in my history and see those vulnerabilities actually progressively get diminished. Or maybe if it's actually a in-date OS, maybe you're gonna all of a sudden do a scan and the vulnerabilities go up because maybe you installed a piece of software, maybe there was a recent exploit found in Windows or in Linux for your OS, and maybe you just haven't patched that yet. So all of those different little things are really, really handy. So let's go take a look at the vulnerability scan that we just launched at the beginning of this video here. So we can actually already see that it's already found 40 of the 60 odd vulnerabilities here. It's got the host, so we can easily just take a look at that here. And you can see some of the information on the side here. There won't be as much information as the other one, because if we go back to the other one here, we are going to see when we click on that, we get the actual OS, we get the MAC, we get the IP address. There's a bunch of different information here that we get, and of course how long it took, which we don't know that yet because it's not complete. So that is really Nessus Essentials, the basic scan in a nutshell here. So in the next video, we're going to be taking a look at the network discovery to be able to kind of detect what is on the network and do bigger scans. And also we're going to compare the scans for Nessus and OpenVAS, especially on the two Metasploitable machines, to see what are the differences in something that is completely free in the community feed, and then Nessus Essentials, where it's actually a license that they give you for a year to be able to scan 16 IP addresses up to a max. But they actually still use the same scanning or the same feeds and same plugins, because Nessus uses the words plugins instead of feeds, but they use the same plugins that are used in their professional and in their expert product. So this, you definitely get a more definitely complete product. And I find overall right now, just from, since this isn't a comparison video, but you could probably notice that the UI or the user interface for Nessus Essentials is quite a bit easier to manipulate yourself around, especially to do a scan, to look at the different vulnerabilities. It's a lot easier on the eyes, and it's just a lot easier to just kind of figure out natively without kind of following a guide or anything like that. That's what I found the first time that I used Nessus Essentials anyways. So hopefully you guys liked this video. If there's any more questions for Nessus, please let me know in the comment section down below. If it's something that I think can benefit from a video, I will definitely be making a video on that. And please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Also, be sure to hit that notification bell to be notified when that next video comes out. And I will see you guys on the next video.